Hello, everyone. We are rolling for another episode of the JJF1 podcast, where Jonah and Jordan talk about all things related to F1. Well, it's been a crazy last few months since the last time we recorded. Personally, I managed to go to France, and I'm currently in France for the next few months. But between that time, we had the last race of the F1 season. We had the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen won from Lewis Hamilton and became, for the first time ever, world champion, with Carlos Sainz finishing in third. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then from there, we're going to make this into our little bit of our end of season review, where we're going to be going through the drivers one by one and giving them a school grade from F to A based on their season. So Jordan, we have a lot to talk about, and I wanted, it's been crazy long. I miss you, buddy. I'm glad we're back on the podcast. How do you feel?
Well, I feel really good. We're back on the podcast. Jonah and I are now on two different continents. He's in Europe, I'm in North America. So we're recording this. There's a bit of a time difference, but it's good to see a familiar face and to know that Jonah is enjoying himself on his student exchange. He actually went, he'll talk about this later, but he went to the FIA headquarters and sent me a video of it. And I'm sure after this Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, there's a lot to be discussed about things that are happening at the FIA headquarters. And I'm excited to talk about that with you, Jonah. What are your initial thoughts of the race? We had a crazy race. And let's start off with qualifying, because in qualifying, Max had a bit of a tire issue in Q2 and qualified on the softs, whereas Hamilton qualified on the mediums, which was the better tire. After qualifying, what was your initial take on qualifying, and what did you anticipate for the race at that point?
You know what? I wish we had different tire strategies throughout the entire grid. One thing that I really enjoyed about the sprint race format was that you were able to, after the sprint, choose whatever tire you wanted to start the full race. And we got to see a really different dynamic between the softs and the mediums for Verstappen and for Hamilton, because of the fact that Max qualified on softs. But I don't think that that tire strategy should be chosen based on being forced to qualify on the softs instead of the mediums. So but did I think that it was a big factor? Not really at the beginning, but I think that in the pits, I knew that it was going to play a huge factor, because we figured that Verstappen was going to be in first. But yeah, I didn't really think that much of it. And I just want to say that while I was watching this race, I watched the first hour of the race, and then I wrote a final exam. And then, yeah, it's true. I wrote a final exam, and I threw my phone away, like far away from where I could reach it, before I turned on my TV and I watched the rest of the race. So I figured, about an hour in, I thought that Hamilton was going to win. It looked pretty decisive. And then I finished my final exam and I watched the rest of the race. So yeah, it was a lot. I mean, first, one thing that we need to talk about even before we get to the race is that the Abu Dhabi circuit was redeveloped. We had a few parts of the track that were fixed, most notably the stupid chicane before the hairpin got taken out, and there's a bank turn now, a slightly banked turn on the at the end of the second DRS zone. So I wanted to know, Jordan, do you think that those developments made for tighter racing and more interesting racing based on the snooze fests that we've had the last few years?
Yeah, I remember texting you, Jonah, at the 2020 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix when Max Verstappen had crazy lead. He won by a landslide. And like you said, snooze fest, boring, very, very bad finale in terms of track when you compare it to the rest of the season. I think it made a huge difference because disregarding the implications of the race, and there were many, I think that in future seasons when a title might already be decided by the time we get to Abu Dhabi, these changes might make for a very interesting race for the rest of the grid. And I think that these new turns and these developments, I think contributes to that a lot. I think it makes it much more exciting just because at a track like that, that chicane stopped a lot of overtaking at the Herpine. We see in Montreal, for example, that there's overtaking done at the Herpine at the end of the circuit. I think it's the west side of the circuit. There's a huge Herpine, similar to not similar to Monaco, but it's right after a long straight. And there's some overtaking that's done there in history. And I think that overtakes can be done at a Herpine in Abu Dhabi, but that chicane stopped it from happening like it would have happened in Montreal, for example. And I'm very happy that after DRS straight, it's not very heartbreaking, it's not a chicane also. It's a turn where you're able to use your DRS to get past the car in front of you. It's the DRS is doing its job, and it only does its job because of what comes afterwards, and now it's able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if we did not have the redeveloped circuit, we would not have Max Verstappen as a world champion right now.
Yeah, exactly. He overtook at that turn.
He overtook at the new redeveloped turn. I mean, you know what? We could just go back. We could dive straight into it. I mean, the first lap of the race, we had already the controversy started where Lewis Hamilton went off the track past Max and then gave back what was his quote unquote lasting advantage instead of passing him. I mean, when I saw that happening, I was just extremely confused as to what was going on because normally I thought they would have just let Max by.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say one thing before we dive into this. There's a lot of talk on the internet and on Twitter about ending the FIA team radio between the team bosses and the FIA on TV.
What do you think?
I'm against it completely. I think it is fantastic.
It's good TV.
I think that if the FIA lets someone like Toto Wolff or Jonathan Wheatley or Christian Horner or anybody from the two teams influence his decision, I don't think that is because they have easy access to the FIA. I think that is because of Michael Massey himself. And in that event where they find that if it can be determined that there's a direct correlation between comments of the team bosses and a certain move on Michael Massey's behalf and the influence of that move, I think the problem lies at the top, at the FIA's point, at Michael Massey's post, where he shouldn't let anybody influence his decision, just like how an NHL referee shouldn't let the team captain influence his call on a penalty.
Yeah.
I don't think that you should limit the access. I think you should make sure you have an impartial judge at the end of the day. I love it. I think everybody should have access to what goes on between the team bosses and the FIA. I think it makes for so much more exciting, a much more exciting viewer experience. And I just wanted to address that because I'm so against it.
I will say it does make some pretty good TV, but now talk about lap one.
Lap one, I think was, personally, I think that Max Verstappen is an aggressive driver, as I have said previously in the past. But this time, it's funny because Lewis kind of gained an advantage from his move. And I feel like in this case, the roles were reversed and he was the more aggressive driver. And it pains me to say it because going into it, I really wanted him to win. And when he did that, I thought he exaggerated his, yes, he might have been squeezed a bit, but over, I think he overstepped his boundaries by taking the exit route and and I feel like he knew that he was gaining an advantage from it. And that's why I think it was more Lewis's fault than Max's fault. And I hate to say it, but I agree with Red Bull that the place should have been given back to a certain
Yeah.
extent. I don't think that they said, okay, Michael Massey, or I forget who was on the FI radio, said the gap was reduced, the advantage was given back. I don't think that's what it was. Max Verstappen had the inside line. He had it clean. I really don't think that the advantage was given back in a sort of way. I think that was a failure on the FIA's decision. That's my opinion.
But I was just as confused as you are, because the race prior, we had a situation where at least what's it called? At least Max tried to give the position back to Lewis because of something that happened. But he didn't. So I figured that there was going to be the same situation where they just said, listen, let Max by and we'll come back after. And clearly it didn't happen. I mean, I thought that was going to be the last bending of the rules for the race. Clearly not the case.
It was confusing to me because Max has a tendency to, we saw in Monza, to really not to really go for it. He's the type of guy that when Lewis is in front, he doesn't care how he's going to get by him. He will eventually get by him, and he tried it in Monza, and we had a crazy crash.
Yeah.
So it's just funny to see the roles reversed, and Lewis taking on that aggressive role. So to me, that's what I took away from that. When I saw that, I said, we're in for a treat today. Yeah. And I said to myself, I feel bad for Jonah that he's writing a final exam.
Well, you know what? Speaking of Lewis, someone that was trying to hold up Lewis as much as possible after a pit stop was none other than Sergio Perez, a defense masterclass, in my opinion. I think that was some of the best defending that I've ever seen in Formula One. We've seen some great defending this year. This with Hamilton, and then Alonso and Hamilton basically guaranteeing Ocon the win in Hungary. Jordan, I mean, from the beginning of Sergio's season to now, we could see that there's been a lot of growth. But do you think that this defense of shaving 6 seconds off of Lewis's gain is proof that Sergio finally belonged in this team?
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. But the first thing I want to say is that at one point in the season, I think it was around the Belgian Grand Prix time, I said a comment on the podcast that, I'm eating my words now. I said George Russell and Sergio Perez, I believe, had the same amount of points in a span of a couple of races. And I said that Sergio Perez, might not be right for Red Bull. I'm eating my words now. I take it completely back. And I take it back for one reason.
I think you actually said, if I'm not mistaken, that no, we both said at that point that Sergio Perez's contract extension was not exactly deserved. And you said that Pierre Gasly should be in that seat instead.
So I actually take that back, and we'll do a driver prediction in one future episode. But what I will say is that I think that Sergio Perez really deserves the seat, and I think he deserves the seat for 2023 even. I'm capable of saying that right now. And I'll tell you, and there's one reason and one reason only. It's because contrary to the other people that have tried to take Sergio Perez's seat and keep it a seat, Sergio Perez is in it and has the right mentality, and that mentality being he knows his spot is not to be the number one driver. He knows his spot is not to, win every second or every third weekend. his spot is to be an accessory to Max Verstappen and to complement him in the best way that he possibly can. And because Sergio Perez knows his role, I think that is why he's succeeding at Red Bull. And Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon both didn't adopt a similar role. They wanted to make it their own. I think that is why they failed. Nothing to do with his racecraft, nothing to do with his skill. It is just to do with his level of maturity and his understanding, the understanding that he has for his employment, essentially.
Okay. You know what? That's a very solid analysis, I will say. One thing that I'm actually really happy that we got finally by the end of this season is, I wouldn't say it's the same as Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber, but finally they have two good drivers.
Yeah.
Which the last time that they had two good drivers was not, well, I mean,
I'd say Ricardo.
I would say Ricardo and Vettel, or
Yeah.
Ricardo and Max, which has been a while. Which has been a while. So finally, I'm not going to jump to conclusions already and say that the second Red Bull seat is no longer cursed, but it's definitely a good sign to see that Sergio Perez finally picked it up this year.
Yeah, he won a race. He had 3 podiums in a row, I believe. In the States, in Mexico, and in Brazil, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he was good for what they hired him to do. Yeah. They hired him to not win the Drivers' Championship. That's out the window. He knew that before signing. They hired him to be a complement to Max Verstappen, to make sure that Max Verstappen wins the championship, and to get as high as, and to challenge Mercedes as much as possible when it comes to the Constructors' Championship. So in a sense, sort of, at least beat Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah, that's a very solid analysis.
That's what I take from it. And you know, if we get back to the race, how do you think that helped Max with his rest of the race? Because in the moment, that helped him tremendously.
I'll tell you exactly how that helped him. Sergio Perez made Max go 6 seconds at one point a lap faster than Lewis Hamilton because of it. I think that it was pure genius. Those 6 seconds, I mean, we thought that after the safety car wasn't like that, it was game over and that there wasn't going to be a lasting advantage. But you know what? Those 6 seconds could have made a huge difference in even whether the safety car was going to come in or not. So I think had any of the variables of this race gone one way or another, we would have a different world champion. So we would have a different world champion, whether it be going Lewis's way or whether it would be going Max's way. This race was the pure concentration of chaos to sum up this crazy year.
Honestly, maybe one of the most competitive and crazy years in Formula One recent history.
Some people are already calling this the best season in Formula One history.
It might very well be. I'm excited for the new cars, but it might very well be.
I mean, I think we know what I want to bring up next, but I want to know if you have something to bring up before we talk about our best friend, the safety car, and Michael Massey.
Let's get right into it.
All right, let's get right into it. Are we firing Michael Massey?
Let's dissect what happened. All right, Jonah.
Let's give a rundown about what happened, because it has been
So are we starting with Gio, or no? We're starting with the actual safety.
We're talking about Latifi doing Tokyo drift into the wall.
Okay, so there's a huge battle going on in this race that nobody knows about, and it's it's Mick Schumacher and Nicholas Latifi. Nikita Mazepin is out with COVID. Crazy hotel section racing. What happens next? Nicholas Latifi is in the wall. The Canadian hero himself, the Canadian legend Nicholas Latifi is in the wall. So a safety car comes out, but there are less than 10 laps in the race because of the impact of the crash, because of the debris all over the place, and because it wasn't even in a runoff area, it was straight middle of the circuit. The safety car and the cleaning took a long time, and the pack was shortened. However, Hamilton had lapped already a few cars, actually all of the cars, and Verstappen was getting to that point, but when the safety car hit, he wasn't there yet. So between Hamilton and Verstappen, there were cars that were lapped by Hamilton and yet to be lapped by Verstappen. And this is when the controversy starts. There was a whole debate as to whether the safety car, the unlapped or the lapped cars would be able to unlap themselves. Normally, all of the lapped cars do so, but in this case, it was the cars in between Hamilton and Verstappen that only did so. I think Ricciardo was behind Verstappen and didn't unlap himself. Now, Jonah, what do you think was going through the race director's head when he said to unlap the cars? Because originally there weren't going to be unlapped, and then they were unlapped, and we know that the rule of thumb is that they normally don't unlap themselves. However, the race director has, the dictatorship and the ultimate veto power to all of this. It is written in the FIA safety code.
Yeah.
Jonah, put yourself in the race director's head. What?
I'm going to quote the race director, Michael Massey, and say what he told to Toto Wolff after the race. Michael, it's called a motor race. And I think that was exactly what was going through his head. I wouldn't say that there's this whole thing about he was trying to fix the race or something. I think that that's completely BS. One thing that I could say is the reason why it took so long and why the flip-flopping in my opinion was because he was trying to take care of the marshals. I mean, we forget that these marshals are volunteers who are trying to pull out a multiple thousand-pound F1 car off the track and clean off debris. I think that out of the respect for the volunteers that have put so much time and effort into this race, Michael Massey decided that he predicted that the marshals weren't going to clean up everything in time for there to be enough racing. And then when everything worked out, that there was enough racing to be done, or that there were enough laps so that they could go racing, that some of the cars were allowed to be unlapped. That's what I think was running through Michael Massey's head in the first place, of flip-flopping between, okay, the cars aren't going to be able to unlap, and then the cars are going to be unlapped. Because if you're unlapping a car at the point of the crash, I mean, not only are you risking slow punctures on the car's tires, but you're also risking hitting a marshal. So I'm thinking more of the people who are on the track who are not at all affiliated with the race and who are trying their best to clean up the car because that's what they were trained to do.
Yeah, I think that you really hit the nail on the coffin. The nail is that what the expression is?
You know what? It's 11 o'clock at night in Glenelg right now.
Anyways, you hit the nail right on the head. You hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah, I don't know why got it.
But yes, yeah, I think that's a very accurate take on what happened. And I love how you brought up it's a motor race, Toto. It's a motor race. They went motor racing.
I will say though, the mic on Toto is going to be memed for the rest of time.
Yeah,
no Michael, no.
Right. That's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. First, I just want to say to Nicholas Latifi, my thoughts are with you, man, because I heard that he got like death threats. I heard he got threats to his family after the race. And
Crazy.
I feel for that. It was not his fault. No one ever should be doing this.
That's
Just wanted to
crazy.
say that. I saw that on the Williams released a statement afterwards. Crazy stuff. In terms of the race, I think that that's what was going through his mind. Yes, the marshals are first and foremost what his concern are and cleaning up the mess, because even when racing does happen, eventually does resume, he wants to make sure that there's no debris there because that could seriously hurt the racers. But now let's go to what you think should have happened, Jonah.
Oh
There's a
God.
difference between what did happen and what should have happened. Now, you're not an FIA employee. You're not, you haven't studied the FIA safety code. To my knowledge, you haven't.
No, the closest thing I got to studying the FIA safety code was being 50 meters away from the FIA headquarters in Paris.
Exactly. So, Jonah, what do you think should have happened when you watched that? What was going through your head, and what were you thinking? What was going through your head? Were you upset? Were you
You know
happy?
what? It was beautiful TV. It was absolutely beautiful TV. I loved every single second of it. Um, you know, one point that changed my opinion originally on what happened was apparently all of the F1 teams signed an agreement that uh, at when most possible, they tried to end all the races under green flags. So if that proceeds all, if that's what the teams want, to have better races and to have better TV, then Michael Massey made the right decision. Is it something that I've never seen before ever, to let like 5 cars unlap themselves conveniently between first and second place? No. Is Michael Massey a god for letting it happen? Absolutely. I I I don't have an I don't think that anything should have changed. If the teams wanted to have a green flag racing at the end of each race, and Michael Massey has the utmost decision, then I think that it's his decision to do what he wants to do. I don't have anything past that to say, because they're realistically, when you're under that kind of pressure and you're thinking about, like I said earlier, the marshals and the race, and we all know that that's not supposed to be in the back of Michael's head, but let's be real, it is the championship after all. So when you have that lurking in the back of your head and you have one guy responsible for it, you're bound to do something where you basically put your foot down and say, listen, I run the show here. And I think that was exactly what Michael Massey did.
Yeah, it's really hard to understand what went down in his brain and what he was thinking when he made that call. But like, I think it's the last stipulation at the end of the code that everyone's referencing, says that he has the power to overrule any of the preceding rules in the FIA safety code if he deems fit. And because the stakes were high, because there was a lot on the line, because there was a lot of things going on, and it was the final lap, he had to make that call. Now, was it the right call? Do I think it should have happened? It's hard to say, but I think that it was the right call. I think that they, it's because everyone knows this. I'm not the biggest Max Verstappen fan, so it's funny that I'm saying this, but I do think that it was the right call, and that, at the end of the day, it was going to come down to the wire, and I think that it was just facilitated that way, but I think that he did the right thing. And yeah,
I love it for TV's sake. That's all that I have.
my heart
That's
was
all that I
pounding.
have to say.
My
I
heart was
loved it for the
pounding.
fantastic TV.
Yeah, it was amazing. I just didn't understand what happened. I was on
Yeah.
Twitter for 2 hours afterwards, just looking for updates, the appeals, the this, the that. Crazy, crazy,
Yeah.
crazy.
So speaking of
Let's
which, I just last comment on the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix before we go into our mini end of season review is Max Verstappen is now a world champion. Jordan, how do you feel?
How do I feel? I think that he is very deserving, and it's great to see a new world champion. I always like seeing new winners and new young talent. Um, do I appreciate his ultra aggressive race style? That's a topic for another video, but for another podcast. But I am very happy to see another world champion. And I'm also very happy to see the number one coming to the grid next year. I think it's great that he's changing his number to one. I think that every world champion should do that.
You know what? I have a controversial take for you. I don't think that he should change his number to number one.
I think every world champion should change their number to
No,
one.
I don't think so. I think that's just a really cocky move. But
I think it's fantastic.
that's my opinion. But regardless of my opinion of him switching to number one versus number 33, I think that it's the terrific conclusion to the crazy season that we've had. And I mean, even personally, we started a podcast at the beginning of this season, and look at how far we've come to the end of this season. And to see our opinions on each of the drivers change in general over the course of the season, I think that it's great that we have this all on the record.
Yeah.
And that also, in the end, I'm super happy that regardless of who won, it was a fantastic season. I think that overall, Max definitely drove a better season. So ultimately, he was the most deserving of it. That's the way that I see it. I think that especially at the beginning where his gaps were huge and Hamilton managed to close it up and everything, I think that it was a valiant effort, and it was very well deserved for Max to come on top. That's what I have to say about it.
I think both of them deserved it. I think Max deserved it. I think Hamilton deserved it equally.
Yeah.
I find it crazy that Max was on the podium. I think he missed the podium only the times he DNF'd.
He DNF'd.
besides Hungary, I think. And
Yeah.
that also was somebody hit him. So just in that in itself is legendary.
Exactly.
I think the push by Lewis at the end, especially Brazil, shows how deserving he is. I think they both are very deserving. And regardless of who won the title, I think the driver who won the title is absolutely deserving and put on a legendary performance this season.
I 100% agree with you. That's amazing. So now we've officially closed the book on our race reviews. Now it's time to do
next year.
Now it's time to do our driver ratings. I guess this is the way we're gonna call it. So I have the list.
A driver report card. We'll call it the driver report card.
Okay, let's call it driver report card. So I have the list of all the drivers that have participated in races this year, and we're going to give them a grade from F to A, obviously A being best and F being worst, considering the circumstances that they've been in. So with that being said, number 21 is Nikita Mazepin of Haas. I mean, Jordan, what do you got to say?
Hold on, 21. We're considering Robert Kubica.
We're considering Robert Kubica, and even though Robert Kubica did how many races? 2 races. He still qualified over Nikita Mazepin.
That's funny. Nikita Mazepin, I am going to give him I have to say an F. I mean, I, I hate giving people Fs. I don't like people failing. But I have to give him an F because had he not have, let's call it the financial backing, financial starts with an F. Let's say he not had the financial backing that he currently has, I do not think that his contract would have been renewed. I think that given his situation, yes, he was in a terrible car, but I will say that Mick Schumacher outraced him 9 out of 10 times, and we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
And in comparison to Mick Schumacher, I think he drove an F.
I have to agree too. Nikita Mazepin gets an F from me. I think that, look, the numbers don't lie. Being handily outqualified by your teammate, always qualifying in P19 or P20, and never making, and being the only driver on the grid to not make it to Q2. For me, that's an F, 100%.
Yeah.
Next, we have Robert Kubica, who brilliantly stepped in for Kimi Räikkönen after he got COVID. I don't really have much to say about this.
Me either. I don't really remember.
I don't remember what he did, really. I'm going to give him a C because he tried.
Sure. Yes. Robert, he's back as the Alfa Romeo reserve driver next season. It was confirmed already. So looking forward to hopefully maybe seeing you if Bottas or if Guan Yu Zhou catches COVID.
Let's hope that neither of them get COVID.
Hope not, but if they do, I hope to see you there.
Great. All right. Now, P19, we have Mick Schumacher. And this is the last of the pointless scorers. So P19, Mick Schumacher, what do you give him?
So I'll give Mick Schumacher a C+.
Okay.
I'll be extra specific. I'll give him a C+ because I think that he did as much as he could given his first season. There were a couple of times where he gave a Latifi a run for his money, somebody who's already had a season in the belt in terms of wheel-to-wheel racing. Just in Abu Dhabi, for example, he was competing with Latifi at the end. So you could tell that he was bringing the car up as much up the grid as he was able to, given his circumstances. I'll give him a C+ because he deserves to be an F1, and I think that his racing, specifically his racing, showed it. I'm giving
him a C. I'm not giving him a C+, because his race engineer would get an A+++++.
Yes, Gary.
I would personally book a therapy session with his race engineer, because the way that he calmed Mick Schumacher down after whatever was spinning on a safety car
in Imola.
Yeah, in Imola, that was amazing. But Mick Schumacher gets a C from me. I think making it into Q2 and a Haas, even though I just ripped Nikita Mazepin for not doing it, getting into Q2 and a Haas is an achievement. So, and all things considered, he ran circles around his teammate. So for me, that's all things considered. I think that there were situations where he could have done better, like the rookie mistakes in Imola, like in Abu Dhabi. Some redeeming parts were like Hungary, where he fought with Max Verstappen, even though Max Verstappen had half a car. I think in general, it was a solid season for Mick Schumacher, but nothing impressive so for me, that's a C. Next, we have Antonio Giovinazzi, with 3 points in P18. Jordan.
It's really sad to see Gio leave Formula One. For those who don't know, he will be in Formula E next season. And I think he's a reserve driver for Ferrari, if I'm not mistaken, next season. Yes, he is. I believe I read that somewhere, to be confirmed, but I did read that somewhere. Either a rumor or he's confirmed, but read that somewhere. Really sad to see Gio leave F1. Hopefully we'll see more of him soon. I think that Gio deserves, I'm going to be nice actually on this one. I'm going to give him a B-. Gio got an Alfa Romeo into Q3. That does multiple times. That doesn't happen much. Does he deserve to not have his seat? Like we said on a previous podcast, I think the money plays a big role into it, so it's very much up for debate. I'll give him a B minus.
I think JoJo gets a D for me.
A D, interesting.
Yeah, I'll explain why. Sure, he brought an Alfa Romeo into Q3, but he blew it so many times when he had the opportunity to score more points. He could have easily ended up with he could have ended up with better places in Monaco. He could have done much better when he started 7th in I forget which race. I think there were situations where Antonio Giovinazzi honestly blew it. I don't think he deserves to stay in F1. That's a D for me. Do you have anything to fight me on it? Because I'll answer.
All I'll say is that I cannot say with conviction that he completely deserves to stay in F1, nor can I say with conviction that he completely deserves to be kicked out of F1.
Okay.
However, I will say that I think it's great that there is at least one rookie in the driver lineup for next year.
That's fair. That's a very fair assessment. Okay, so now P17, we have Canadian boy Nicholas Latifi. I think I'm gonna start this one off. I think Nicholas Latifi gets a B for me.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'll explain why. He got points in a Williams. That's it. Nothing else. He got
okay.
No. Let me. I actually have more to say. So he got points in Williams, and he actually out-qualified George Russell. So for me, doing both of them, that's a B for me.
Look, I have to go the opposite direction. I think it's a D. I think it's a D season for Nicholas Latifi. I think that his contract is done after this year. Williams team principal Josh Capito said, I believe on multiple occasions, that Williams is not the team anymore that requires crazy financial backing. Hint, hint, they don't really need paid drivers anymore. And unless you live under a rock, I think we can qualify Nicholas Latifi as a sort of paid driver. His father's company, Sofina Foods, was one of the main sponsors on the Williams car in 2020. They had also a big sponsorship on the car this year. We can, conclude that his financial backing is a large part of why he's in F1. No secret there. But what's lacking in Nicholas, so we'll see what happens in 2023. But what is lacking in Latifi's racing for me, and what's giving him a D in my books, is the consistency. And to me, I associate those stellar performances in Hungary and out-qualifying George Russell. I associate those performances to more lucky situations than anything. The whole pile-up turn 1 Hungary, we know what happened there, so that's my take.
Fair point. That's honestly very fair assessment. All right, P16, we have Kimi Räikkönen with 10 points total.
The Iceman himself. Look, I'm gonna give him a C, because the C is the type of grade that you give to someone that kind of studies a day or two before the exam. They don't, you know what I mean? It's the type of grade that is given when you realize you don't really care anymore. I think that he didn't really care anymore, and to me, it showed. There was a lack of heart that I saw this year, and that's why I'll give him a C.
I'm actually giving him a D for the same reasons. Plus, he crashed into his own teammate on a straight, and that's a really not rookie move. He did a rookie move, and he's the most experienced driver in the history of Formula One. You don't do that. It was in Portimao. He crashed into Giovinazzi and
Yeah, the third lap
stupid.
or whatever it
But
was.
I think that that was the beginning of the end for Kimi. So I think that just not caring at all and being subpar the entire season, for me, that's a D.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, great. Next, P15 with 16 points. George Russell, for me, that's an A. 100%. George Russell is getting an A. The man got a podium in Belgium, even though it was the shortest race ever. I don't care what you say. He got a podium in Belgium. He got points in Hungary. He got points in other races, which I forget. He qualified P3 in Russia. The man drove the crap off that car. And I cannot, like, I sent you this video, Jordan, actually, where it came from Mercedes Instagram, where George Russell steps into the light and he says, George Russell, 23 years old, driver for Mercedes AMG Petronas Formula One team. And that hit me. I cannot wait to see him in a Mercedes. A. He's an A for me.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think he's an A. If I were uh, if I were to just add on to what you're saying, the one thing that I'll say is that he did all of that. That's why I'm giving him an A. But what speaks to me more is the fact that he got the Mercedes seat, because there are data that Jonah and I don't have, and that Toto Wolff and the Mercedes staff do have, that they're able to look at to assess and to determine his performance and to assess the driver that he is. And they saw with the data not only how good he is of a driver and how well he performed, but how well he's progressed since he started in Formula One.
That's fair.
He's learned so much and he's shown that he's grown so much at a bottom team. For that reason and that reason only, I think it deserves an A. So yes, A for George Russell. We're both in agreement. Good luck in Mercedes.
All right, so now P14 with 32 points, we have Yuki Tsunoda.
Oh, it's really funny that you mentioned Yuki Tsunoda. Well, you're going to mention him anyway, but it's funny that we're mentioning Yuki Tsunoda because when he was asked in a press conference what he thought of his renewal or the fact that he's getting renewed, he said that he was surprised. And the reporter asked him why, and he responded with, I crashed the car too many times. I thought they would be so upset. So I find that really funny. I'm going to give Yuki Tsunoda a C. I think it was an average season, kind of like Gio. I can't really say with conviction he deserves to be an F1, and I can't say with conviction he doesn't deserve to be an F1. He's sort of kind of the driver that's on the fence for me. I think what's really going to determine that is to see if he's actually learned anything from this past year and is able to show it. So I'll give him a standard C. It's actually pretty good for a first-year driver.
That's honestly solid assessment. I think that because he crashes the car too much, I'm giving him a C minus.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, but
it's the qualifying for me that that sets Yuki apart, because had he done better in qualifying, he would have scored many more points.
Agreed. I think that for a first-year driver where you're really learning the ropes, it's not like you're just switching from team to team. You're really learning the ropes of Formula One itself. Granted, I again, this is no judgment, but I played Formula One 2021 on my Xbox, and my favorite car to drive is the AlphaTauri. Just it's become my favorite car to drive. But yes, I think that because it was his first season, he's just learning. I think it's a great first season.
Yeah, it's honestly solid.
Decent, very decent. Yeah,
I think that there's nothing else to say about that. Like, solid season. I think he just needs to learn how to handle his car. That's what I have about it.
Exactly.
So, Jordan,
P13. Oh no, I know it's coming.
P13 with 34 points is Lance Stroll.
Jonah, go first. I'm gonna cry.
Oh man, I feel so bad because he didn't drive horribly this season. I'm gonna need to give Lance like a C minus. I don't want to give Lance a D because it wasn't that bad of a season. But
you're too nice, I find.
man, I'm giving Lance like a C minus because it was excessively mediocre. That is, I don't know. But like the thing is that same with Vettel, who we're gonna talk about later. Both of them drove the crap out of that car because they both had the most like first and fourth most overtakes in the entire season. So it's not like neither of them can drive. The points just didn't show this year at all. So I'm giving Lance a C minus because being aggressively in P11 is not a great sign.
Look, we clearly have differing opinions on Aston Martin's season. I actually think that yes, they can drive and yes, they can overtake, but I think that 80% of the success of Aston Martin didn't come from the drivers. I think it came from Otmar Zafnauer this season with his strategy.
Strategy genius.
Yes, and I'm really excited for Martin Crack, I think his name is.
No, his name's Mike Crack.
Mike Crack. I'm very excited for Mike Crack, but thank you to Otmar Safnauer. I think you're being way too nice to Lance. Maybe it's because he's my favorite driver that you have to go hard on him. I'm giving him an F. I think it's an F season. I think it's an F season.
Wow.
He should not have gotten out in Q3 the amount of times that he did.
In Q1, you mean?
Sorry, Q1, the amount of times that he did. He should have shown up at the Q3 many more times than he did. And I think that that's what made him, naturally have to overtake more. And I think a big part of the reason is because the strategy was there, the tires lined up, the timing lined up. I think it's an F season, big F season for Lance. I'm very disappointed in Aston Martin season.
Oh God. So
I understand they had a car with the regulations really screwed with them, but I think that even Vettel could have done better. I think it's an F season for Lance.
Yeah. You're not holding back.
Drop the mic.
Drop the mic. Yeesh. All right. Well, in that case, I'm just gonna let you go next and talk about Sebastian Vettel, who's in P12 with 43 points.
Yeah, I'm giving Sebastian Vettel a D. Really, it's not a good season from Aston Martin. I understand he had the best overtakes, which is why I'm not giving him an F. Maybe I'm way too hard on him. But, he got his 1 million jelly beans or whatever the prize he got for the Crypto.com Most Overtake Award. Lots of cryptocurrency sponsors this season. Velas at Ferrari and Tezos at McLaren. Lots of cryptocurrency sponsors. They're everywhere right now. But yeah, I'll just say that I think that Seb, the one reason why I'm giving him more a D rather than an F is because he was in Q3 more times than Lance was. I think they could have been there every other race, as it was very inconsistent with Aston Martin.
Okay. Solid assessment.
Yeah. What about you?
I'm giving Sebastian Vettel a C as well.
I gave him a D, but I'll give him a D plus.
Yeah, I'll give him a C because he got podiums plus whatever you said.
Fair enough.
Which is something that Lance did not get, and I don't know why. I think I can't be mad at Lance. That's that's the way that I'm seeing this analysis right now. But
all right.
Yeah, that's what I have. I'm giving Seb a C. I mean, what? No, I mean, did he? No, he didn't officially get 2 podiums. He got 1 podium, and then he got the second removed because he didn't have a liter of fuel left. That was brutal. That was horrible. I hope that Aston Martin picks it up next year. I mean, I'm really sad to see Otmar Safnauer go, but I did a little bit of deep diving into Mike Crack's CV. It looks very, very interesting, and I'm interesting to see what he was. And also, for those who are who have never heard this man's name before, his name is actually Mike Crack. This is not a joke. He is the new team principal at Aston Martin Cognizant Formula One team. So, next. Jordan, I'm going to let you start this off. P11, 74 points, race winner Esteban Ocon.
When you look at the season in total, I understand why it could be a little underwhelming. I'm going to give him a C. I think he deserves to be a Formula One race winner. And I think that at times, especially near the end of the season, Alpine performed well. He was in first place at one point in Saudi Arabia. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
He could have qualified a lot better, but I think that in terms of the racing, he did really well when it was in a race setting.
Mm-hmm.
And for that reason, I'm going to give him a C. I think he deserves the seat, and I'm really happy to be an Ocon fan. I think that he continues to grow every year.
You know what? I was ready for Ocon to win 2 races this season.
Yeah.
There was you know what? Something went in my head, and I thought, if Ocon's in first, Hamilton and Verstappen are in second in Saudi Arabia, and they crash into each other, Ocon's going to win the race. So that didn't happen, but I'm giving Esteban Ocon a B.
You're even nicer than me, and
I am nicer than you because he won a race, which is something that we can never take away from him. And in general, he pushed the limits of that Alpine, and he pushed that Alpine more consistently, in my opinion, than his teammate Fernando Alonso, who is in 10th place with 81 points. And even though I gave Esteban Ocon a B, I'm gonna give Fernando Alonso also a B because of the way that he managed to come back into the sport and make his mark on the sport again, like he never left.
I agree with you on the take of Alonso. I really have nothing more to say about that. Alpine had a great end of the season, fantastic end of the season, where Ocon in Saudi Arabia was going to come in third. They were about to have 2 podiums in a row. Yeah, I think Alonso also deserves. I'll stick with that analysis on Fernando Alonso as well.
Okay, cool. In that case, P9, Pierre Gasly, 110 points. Say what you want. This is an A season from Pierre Gasly. 100%.
Look, I might be too nice. I'm giving him an A+. I think he deserves an A+. He is a fantastic driver. It's unfortunate to think that he could potentially leave the Red Bull family at one point. He really deserves a second stint at that big team because he could be a multiple race winner. He's really good when he puts his mind to it and he's in a comfortable environment and he doesn't have the wrong headspace. I think he's a fantastic driver. He knows how to qualify and he knows how to race. And seeing him in P4 multiple times this season to start the race was incredible in what's supposed to be a junior team. He
started P2 in Qatar.
Yeah, he beat Sergio Perez in qualifications so many times. I think they were like almost even on quality performances too. That shouldn't happen from your junior team, the one that's supposed to be the Red Bull Academy, the one that's supposed to be the Red Bull farm team. Not supposed to happen. A+. He is an excellent driver and deserves a better car.
Unlike one of your favorite drivers, Sergio Perez did not say they raced me so hard when talking about Pierre Gasly. Yeah, that's a little shot. Can't wait for him to come back at Williams. But yeah, just to add on that, he got a podium in Baku. What more can you say about that?
He's had a podium every year for the past 3 years.
He was definitely in my opinion, the most consistent driver on the grid this year.
Absolutely. And I think it's we'll get to Carlos Sainz in a bit, but I think it's a toss-up for most improved as well.
Yeah, 100%. On that note, in P8 we have with 115 points Daniel Ricciardo.
I'm gonna be very mean.
Controversial pick.
I'm giving him an F.
Whoa! What?
Yeah, but if I were to give him an F, I'd give him an F plus if that's a thing, or
Jordan,
let's say a D minus in that
Jordan, he
area.
won a race.
Yeah, even if he won a race, it's one race. I think that his inconsistency triumphs that race. I really think that maybe with the D, but I'll give him a D just because of that race. I'll be nice.
Jordan,
D
that's
season.
the biggest hot take of this entire season.
No, D season
Daniel
for me.
Ricciardo getting an F.
He was way too inconsistent. He won one race, but every other race he was, half the time was outside of the points in a McLaren. Maybe more than like 7 on 10 times out of the points. I think it was a really disappointing season just because of the amount of inconsistency. And when it was raining with Daniel Ricciardo, it really poured and he was way out of the points.
Okay. I think that it was very hard. That was very harsh.
I think that that's what it is. And I would say that, like, yes, he's going to a new team. He has to learn the ropes when you're, like I said, the entire season. You have to relearn all of the specificities with your new team. And at one point, when you jump from team to team, it can get harder and harder. I think that really came to bite him in the behind. I think that one race, it's Monza, it's a temple of speed, and we know it's a track where anything can happen. So I think that's a big factor as to why he won the race. But I think that his inconsistencies triumphed over his race win.
I was going to give him a C.
Yeah, me, it's more like a D minus.
That's rough. I'm giving him a C because say what you want. He won a race. I mean, you know what? I will agree with you though. It was definitely not a fantastic season for Daniel Ricciardo. Honestly, if we counted the amount of times that if we took a shot for the amount of times that Daniel Ricciardo finished in P11, we would probably die of alcohol poisoning. So yeah, I think it's the same thing. Just being out of the points, especially in the beginning of the season where they were really on it. What happened with McLaren at the end of the season? I don't even know. But yeah, that's what I have about Ricciardo. I think that he was out of the points too much, but he did win a race. So I'm giving him credit where credit is due. He won a race. Or clearly you don't think the same way because you gave him an F, which you upgraded to a D. So
D minus.
D minus. Okay, that's passable. All right, P7. P7 we have with 159 points, Charles Leclerc. So for me, I'm giving him a C, because I thought that this was going to be a year where Charles Leclerc stamped his authority on that #1 Ferrari seat, and he didn't. Carlos Sainz, in my opinion, drove much better over the course of the year. I mean, we could say that Charles Leclerc could have won in Silverstone, but he didn't. But in general, it was not that, considering all circumstances, good year that we expected from Charles Leclerc this year. I think that Carlos Sainz was a much better driver. And for someone that was in their first year in Ferrari versus the guy that has the longest and the richest contract in Ferrari history, I think that he did not do as well as I thought he was going to do. So I'm going to give him a C.
Yeah, you're being too nice. I think maybe I don't know if I'm being too hard or too nice. I was going to give him a D. I think that this
season did get a podium though.
I think the season was passable for Charles Leclerc. Yeah, but Carlos Sainz got 4. And it was his first year with Ferrari. Fair. So I think that the reason why he qualified P1 those 2 times, back-to-back races, was because it was a hectic qualifying in both sessions, and there were crashes and red flags. I think that.
Oh yeah, he got pole positions too. What are you talking about?
Because who knows what would have happened after the red flag.
He could have won Monaco.
Who knows? I think that it was a passable season, just because Carlos Sainz drove that car so much better.
Yeah, that's the way
That's
that
the
I
only
see it
reason
too.
why.
That's the way that I see it too. All right, well, moving on to that, with 160 points in P6, we have Lando Norris.
Honestly, great start to the season. Fantastic start to the season. Very impressed. I'm going to give him a B. The only reason why I wouldn't give him an A is because I felt, like you mentioned on the podcast, I felt near the end of the season there was some lack of immaturity that was there. Maybe he started getting angry with the team. Not trying to spread rumors, but who knows? But yeah, I think that he's just shy of an A with a B. So give him a B plus. He almost won a race. He qualified in pole. He
He got a few podiums too.
got a few podiums too. P2, highest race finish. Yeah, I'll give him a B. I think he's McLaren's future, and I think that they should build with him. And if he shows that he can continue to learn and and to grow with them in a positive way, I think the sky's the limit.
I'm giving him a C because of that horrible end of season. Sure, the podiums were great. The pole was great, but I think that him telling his race engineer to shut up on the last lap of Russia when they asked him to pit, was the start of the downfall of his season.
Agreed.
So I can't get over the immaturity that Lando had near the end of the season, and for me, that's why he gets a C.
Very fair.
I don't know why. There's something that sticks with me that he's giving me like a stubborn baby vibes, which seems really weird to say about an F1 driver, but that's what I got near the end of the season from Lando Norris. So, I mean, take all the podiums, and I think that it balances out in my opinion, with the podiums and the pole and everything. It balances out to a C because I don't know. I just can't get over the lack of maturity that he had in some of the races. And if he expects to continue his career in Formula One like this, he needs to get a little bit more level-headed.
Very fair.
Well, I'm very happy that you haven't fought me on my takes here. P5, Carlos Sainz, 164.5. Do I need to say this? This is an A. This is an A season.
Yeah, to me, this is an A plus. I think he is the most improved driver of the season. I think that I think the reason why it's an A is because he surpassed a lot of expectations.
Yeah. That's the best thing I could say is multiple podiums, smashing Charles Leclerc, smooth operator, Mr. Chili, beautiful season from Carlos Sainz, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Yeah, well, all right. I'm ready for the hot takes to roll in. P4, 190 points. Sergio Perez.
Was Daniel Ricciardo not hot enough for you?
You know what? Yeah, that was a pretty hot take, my friend.
For Sergio Perez, let's give him a B.
I was gonna give him a B too. Okay, not super hot.
Yeah, no, we'll give him a B. It showed at the beginning of the season that he took his time to get used to the Red Bull car, and I think that he really learned as time went on what his job is at Red Bull, and I think that that's what made him do so well near the end of the season. And I think that he's just going to carry that on to next season. I have high expectations for Sergio Perez next season. I think he will meet those expectations. And I think that this season, because of his end of season, 3 podiums in a row, defending Max multiple times, and being a huge help in Max winning the championship, I'm going to give him a B, more like a B plus.
I'm going to give him a B too. I think that it was a very solid season from him. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's recency bias, but I still can't get over that very lackluster beginning of the season. But I think that overall, like the same thing with Lando Norris and his good beginning of the season and his terrible end of season balancing out to a C. I think that even in Sergio Perez's bad beginning of the season, he still qualified P2 in Imola. So I will give him credit where credit is due and give him a B on that because the race win, the podiums, the saving max, I think it's worthy of a B season. And I think that next year he could definitely win a few more races. I think that he could definitely be an A+ driver next year. That's the way that I see it.
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. Oh boy, Jordan, I'm gonna let you talk about this. P3, 226 points from Finland, Valtteri Bottas.
Well, look, I really had high expectations for Bottas going into the season. I thought that this was a season that he was going to prove to everybody that everybody can go fly a kite. He is the real deal.
To whom it may concern.
To whom it may concern. I think that he really, really missed the expectations that were put on him this season. He got demoted. But after he got demoted, he actually did decent. Not many podiums. He got the race win, but he did decent. I think it's really hard to say. I think that given the entire season, nobody deserves to be demoted, but I think that the demoted was given with it was reasoned, and the reason the demotion was done for a reason. I think it was right for him to be demoted. I'm gonna give him like a B-, C+. It's really hard because I had such high expectations.
I'm giving him a D, Jordan.
Maybe I'm too nice.
That's what you told me earlier.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm giving him a D. He should have won more than one race. It was that simple. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
He stopped caring, in my opinion, when basically the writing was on the wall that he was going to get replaced. And then once he finally had no expectations on him, he ended up moving up. So, in my opinion, he should have won more races.
To me gives me more of like a B- range because
I think for me
he did clean sweep Turkey, which is a hard track. So
it is. That's a fair assessment. But I will say that he should have more weekends like Turkey in the officially best car in the season.
Yes, agreed.
So with that being said, oh my, Lewis Hamilton, P2, 387.5 points. I mean, look, I think this is an A season for him. That's it.
I'm going to put a little asterisk on that. I think it's more of an A- season.
Okay,
it's a legendary season for granted. Granted, it's a legendary season. But I do think that a lot of what happens in Formula One is not only on the track, it's also off the track and how the drivers conduct themselves off the track. And Lewis Hamilton is a stand-up guy, shows a great deal of sportsmanship, especially after the World Championship was decided, with the interview right after. But everything following that, the rumors right now of him maybe not continuing in F1 next year, based on the FIA's decision. As a fan, I'm kind of disappointed that those rumors are circulating because I said at the beginning that I don't like it when the FIA is influenced to make a certain decision. And I feel like the one thing that is influencing the FIA to make a certain decision is him threatening to not be in Formula One. He is the biggest star in Formula One. He is the reason why England has not the reason, but a huge reason why England has viewers every single weekend to watch Sir Lewis Hamilton perform. And the reason why I'm going to give him an A minus is because of the performance that happened after the season. I think a lot of what goes into the season is what happens after the season. So I'm going to give him an A minus for that reason.
Solid assessment. I'm giving him an
Yeah.
A. I'm giving him an A because I'm throwing that out the window. And I'm going to talk about how he drove an amazing season from the opener in Bahrain to the crash in Silverstone and then winning from the penalty, from Brazil literally last the first twice over, from Saudi Arabia. I think in general, this was a memorable season for Lewis Hamilton, because when we compare it to last season, I don't think that Lewis Hamilton had any memorable races. I think it was just Lewis Hamilton being Lewis Hamilton, except for maybe winning Silverstone on 3 wheels. It was just Mercedes dominance. This year, Lewis Hamilton showed how good he is of a driver. So that's why he gets an A season from me.
Very fair. If it was just the track, I would have given him an A.
Okay. And now, last but not least, P1, 395.5 points. Your new world champion from the Netherlands, Max Verstappen. Do I need to say anything?
Yeah,
She's
it's
a
an
world
A.
champion.
Yeah.
A.
A. Could do with not trying to squeeze in to tight corners less, but other than that, A.
Yep. That's it. A. 10 wins, 3,000
I'll always
podiums.
remember after that Monza crash. That's what you get when you don't leave the space.
All the time you have to leave it a space.
Yeah. Love him.
That's an Alonso
Love
bit
it.
from I don't know how long ago, but it was an Alonso radio from probably early 2010s or something like that. But yeah,
And
he's a
that
world champion.
concludes our 2022 season.
2021, Jordan.
2021 season. Oh my. That concludes the 2021 season.
Well, yeah, we did it. I can't believe it. We're at the end of the season. On behalf of the both of us, thank you very much for listening all the way through from whenever we started. I think we started in April. So through
Just
all this
crazy to
time, thank you for listening to us. We really, really appreciate it. Jordan, it's been an absolute pleasure going through these last few months of the crazy season that we had. Do you have anything else to cap off?
I am very excited for 2022.
Great.
And the last thing that I'll say to cap off is that Jonah and I have a very big announcement to make. We have purchased our tickets for the 2022 Canadian Grand Prix. We will be there. So anybody wants to spot a familiar face and talk up some F1, find us at the Canadian Grand Prix.
Yeah, we will see you at the Canadian Grand Prix in 2022. If you want to follow us throughout the 2022 season, throughout the off season, throughout whatever the hell is going on in the world of F1, feel free to like our Facebook page and follow us on Instagram at the JJF1 podcast, and we will see you for the next episode. See ya.
See ya.